Welcome to the Careers Group's webinar, Careers in Advertising, a panel discussion. My name is Ed McLean. I'm a careers consultant at the Careers Group, and I am host of today's webinar. So before we get started, today's webinar is audio only, so there are no slides, there's no graphics to see. We will be uploading a video to YouTube, and we will email you the link within 24 hours, so you're free to watch again or distribute to your friends. Today we're very fortunate to have with us a panel of advertising professionals who are going to be sharing with us their expertise and advice. Once they've briefly introduced themselves, I'm going to be asking them the questions that you, the students, have sent in to us by email before this webinar. You can also ask questions using the question box that's on your screen in the bottom right hand of the screen. Our panel today includes Lucie Blake from Ogilvy Group, also Frank Durrell, who is from TMP Worldwide, Pete Dyson from Ogilvy and Mather, and Teresa Hunt from the in-house agency at Zurich Financial Services. Okay, so let's get started. I'd like to ask our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and we'll start with Lucie Blake, please. Lucie, would you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Lucie. I'm on the planning graduate scheme at Ogilvy Group, and I've worked here now for a year. My planning graduate scheme involves me rotating around 4 different agencies within the group and finding out about strategy and research in each of these different agencies. I did an undergraduate degree in art history, and then I did a master's degree in managing in the creative industries, which is where I became interested in advertising. Having graduated, I did a number of internships and work placements, and finally found my place here at Ogilvy.
Great. Thank you very much, Lucie. And on to our next panelist, who's Frank Durrell. Could you please introduce yourself, Frank?
Hello, everyone. My name's Frank Durrell. I was head of digital at TMP Worldwide. Basically, that encompasses looking after creative strategy, project management and technology. So all of the teams needed to create solutions to service our clients' needs. That's working in partnership with people like client service, who are the sales and service end of the operation. I've worked in marketing and specifically digital marketing for around 15 years. Started out at a graduate scheme at Enron. Moved into advertising just because there was such a lot of variety and great work going on, and I wanted to be a part of it. Worked my way through a bunch of different advertising agencies, including Ogilvy, Syzygy, FCB. Actually ran my own agency for a little while, and I'd say it's certainly the most fun job I think that I could imagine doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Frank. And our next panelist is Pete Dyson. Pete, would you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Pete and I work at Ogilvy Group as well, alongside Lucie, but I am on the account management grad scheme, which sees us rotate in 3 different placements over 3 years. So last year I was working in the PR sector. This year I'm working for American Express, making the UK advertising. And next year I'll be working in a smaller department in Ogilvy called Ogilvy Change. Before joining Ogilvy, I studied geography, specifically human geography at university. So I've always been interested in people and what makes people tick, which is how I found myself in this building, I think. That's my story.
Great, thank you very much, Pete. And finally, Teresa Hunter, would you introduce yourself, please, Teresa?
Sure, yeah. Hi, Ed. Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Hunter. I work within an in-house agency at Zurich Financial Services, which is a big global financial services organisation. I got all into this crazy business through doing a degree in languages and business, and starting off kind of doing a graduate placement within a large organisation. And then I decided I want to go agency side, so most of my career has been working in a sort of client services area for digital agencies. So in London, my latest role in London was at AKQA, and I also lived in New Zealand for a bit, and I now live in Bristol, where I've worked in some more local agencies as well. So always digital and always client services. So I think what I would like about that job is basically making sure, that what I do in a day is work that makes me proud and makes me feel good, and just kind of constantly asking questions to get the right work out the door. And it's a really rewarding, quite a full-on industry to be in.
Great. Thank you very much, panelists. Okay, so we already have questions in from our students, and Michael at King's is asking, what are the key skills and traits you'd expect to find in a graduate coming into advertising? So if I could ask that, first of all, to our first panelist, Lucie, what are the key skills and traits you'd look for in a graduate applicant in advertising?
I think the key skills and traits you look for are, first of all, in Ogilvy, we always look for curiosity. So wanting to look a bit outside what the norm might be, what you kind of think the standard answer could be. I think also people who are hardworking, because this is an industry where you do have to work long hours. It's very rewarding, but you can't just do the bare minimum and expect it to get by. I think also people who are intelligent and people who really know how to get on with people, because this is an industry that's really based around an understanding of people, the general public, and also the people that you work with. Because you'll have to work with people who are solely to do with project management, you have to work with creative people, you have to work with people who are interested in research. Everybody has a different agenda, and you have to find a way to make all of these agendas meet together and really just be a people person.
Great, thank you, Lucie. Frank, do you have anything to add on that, the skills and traits you would expect to see in a graduate entering advertising?
I think that's a really good summation. I think it is very much an industry made up of people, and it is that ability to be able to listen to what people are doing. It's one of those industries where almost you can have either deep specialism, or you can be one of those types of people that just can understand and get under the skin of a lot of different industries, a lot of different areas of that industry. A key thing I believe is important is the idea of respect as well. You have to respect the creative and the way the artistry of it works, as well as the strategic, as well as the financial, as well as the technical. It's no good just saying, well, I know about client service and that's all I care about and nothing else matters. So again, I think it is asking questions and having that respect of everyone around you. And all of that really is the people-person side of it. Obviously, you have to have the right qualifications. That always helps. Being smart always helps as well. And I think those are the key traits that people look for.
Thank you very much. Two very complete answers there. Pete, I wonder if we've left you with anything else to add. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just a little bit. On top of curiosity, it kind of extends out to kind of having a really questioning attitude. That might be questioning the adverts and the work that we see around us day to day, but also when you're in work, just having the confidence to ask questions. Because remember, as we all join as grads, we're all trying to learn as fast as we can and pick up new skills and new bits of information. A well-timed question could be as useful as a great insight, I'd say.
Thank you, Pete. And Teresa, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just a couple more things, I think, but just definitely echoing what was just then said around questioning things. The industry is evolving, obviously, every day, really. So at the end of the day, the work we create someone needs to respond to that, and that's our kind of success measure. So it's really questioning: is it the right thing? Have an opinion, work out what you think. You didn't have to accept everything that's put in front of you. So it's good to kind of question and really drill down to the right solution. And at the same time, don't be afraid of failing, really, because you have to do everything for the first time. So just really, don't overthink things. Go for your first response to something, and sort of see how it goes, really. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Some really great answers there. We have a question in from Romain from Royal Holloway. He says that he is hesitating between applying for an account handler or an account planner position. And he asks if someone could explain the main differences between those two positions. And I'll throw this open to the panel, whoever would like to answer that.
I think myself and Lucie should probably step in here, since I sit on the account handler side and Lucie on the account planning part. So.
Okay.
I'll start. I work as an account planner, so my job is mainly concerned with strategy and research. So I will be the person in a traditional advertising agency who gets given a brief by a client. I then have to translate this client brief. I have to do lots of research around it, and I have to think about it in terms of communications, in terms of what's best going to work for the target audience, and then translate all of my findings into what's typically a one-page document to hand over to a creative team. They then go and interpret it into a piece of advertising or a piece of content or something that will ultimately end up as a piece of communications. Where my role differs from an account handler's is that I probably see a little bit less of the clients. I don't tend to deal in finances and organising, I suppose less organised, I'd probably say. Organising meetings, definitely planners do that, but account managers are really the people who drive the project forward, and they're the ones who coordinate everyone else. Whereas my role tends to come in right at the start of a project, and towards the end I will see slightly less of it.
And I, sitting as an account on the account management side, it's been best described to me as being the voice of the agency at the client and the voice of the client at the agency, which means day in, day out, I speak to brand managers in this case, on American Express, and we talk about how we might solve their problem, what we can offer, how we can get an advert made, or how we can tweak an existing piece of work. And then once we're decided on that, I communicate that with the rest of the team here in the agency and manage the project from start to finish.
Okay, thank you very much. Very clear. Thank you. So we have a next question is from Melissa at UCL. She says, if I want a career in digital marketing, what kind of things should I blog about? So it sounds like Melissa runs a blog, or she's intending to, and she's interested in digital marketing. What kind of things should she blog about? I'll throw this open to the panel. Does anyone have any ideas on this?
Probably the best first answer is blog about the things you're interested in. It's very difficult to be an engaging blogger if it's stuff you either don't know anything about or aren't interested in. The more interested you are in something, the more you'll probably know about it. Then obviously there's about specific areas that are currently trending. You can either try and be someone who amalgamates knowledge that's going on at the moment, so a place to go to find out what's happening. That's one interesting type of blogger. The other interesting type of blogger is the person who is the thought leader, who isn't just about going and amalgamating stuff, which is a difficult job in and of itself, but someone who puts across their own views, their own opinions. Both are equally valuable. Both have their own challenges, but I would say for good blogging, those are some of the things people would look for. But first and foremost, it has to be something that's going to be maintainable, because the thing about a blog is you can write one good article or two good articles, but a good blog needs to be something that will retain people for a duration of time. That's one of the measures of a great blogger.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. We have another question in from Mina at St. Mary's. She says, I am involved in marketing for a society. For this, I do lots of advertising, posters, etc. Should I talk about this on application forms for internships? Is this going to be seen as credible by an employer, or is it too low level?
I would say absolutely include it, yeah. There's no too low level piece of communication. It's all in how you approach it, and if you're approaching it with an original or well thought out idea, then for sure shout it from the rooftop. You only would need to turn to the creative awards that are issued year in, year out, and they don't go, or they more often than not don't go to the work that you see everywhere paid for on big spend TV adverts, but they might go on very small little print ads that are particularly smart, particularly niche. So it's all in the approach, I think.
Okay. Any of our other panelists have any comments on this one?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I just want perhaps one more thing is that it would just make you stand out perhaps if you're already, you've got your qualifications and your interests listed on your CV and other experience, but if there's things you're doing proactively in your own time or just as something which doesn't fit into kind of a standard CV type format, then that might raise an eyebrow when people are reviewing your work amongst everybody else's.
Thank you very much, panelists. Okay, and on to our next question, and this leads on, connects nicely, I think. Amy is asking, what is the best way to get into the industry if I have no previous experience in advertising? So how do you get that kind of first break? And again, open to the panel.
I'll answer this. I had no previous experience in advertising. My first degree had nothing to do with advertising. I didn't find out about advertising really as an industry until about 2 years after I graduated. When I did find out about it, I quickly realised it can be very difficult to get into. My master's degree focused on advertising, and I was able to make some connections through the people I interviewed as part of my dissertation. But ultimately, it was getting work experience in agencies. And many agencies do have work experience programs. Some of them may have a long wait for you to get onto them. Sometimes you may have to know somebody in the agency to get on a work experience program. But out of my 2 lots of work experience, I got a 2-month-long work placement and also managed to, from there, then managed to build my experience, and eventually I got the job where I am now. But also, even going for interviews, I found that though I might not have got the job, they had me in mind for other jobs, and I was offered roles based on my performance then. So I'd say applying for lots of different graduate schemes is one way to go about it. Applying for work experience is another way to go about it. And I think just making yourself known, being a pleasant person to work with, and taking every opportunity. And I think also I found going to industry events, especially if you can get a cheap student ticket, is really worthwhile, because I actually met somebody there at one event I went to who put me in touch with somebody else in an account management department, and I was offered an internship out of that. So that was really useful. So I say take every opportunity that you can, and just remember to keep on trying, because it can be tough, but it really is worth it.
Thank you, Amy. Any of our other panelists have anything to add on that point? What's the best way to get into the industry with no previous experience?
I would say that one of the interesting things about the marketing industry and the advertising industry is that it's very all-encompassing. So there are lots of different routes in. I myself did a computer science degree and started out as a developer. Now, obviously, this was 15 years ago, which potentially makes me very old. But it was long enough time ago that perhaps that was still an easier route to get in, because the industry was looking for digital expertise. There are many different ways to start approaching it. There's PR agencies, there's digital agencies, there's big network group agencies. One of the things that we are blessed and cursed with as an industry is that very few people actually, some do, but very few people go and do a marketing degree and then go straight into the industry. You know, a lot of the people I've worked with had history degrees and English degrees. So having a marketing degree where it gives you almost to some degree a heads up and a leg up when you can talk about some of the principles and you can refer to examples. I mean, one of the things that when we interview people, want to find out about is, what do you think? What do you know? Do you have an opinion? What can you talk with me about? Now, the other person who said that they'd done something before, should they mention it? Absolutely. So anything that you can refer to as part of some coursework, as part of, even you go and look at some of the top advertising that's going on. Go and look at the awards that are being nominated and won for work, and have an opinion so that when you can get in front of people as well, it's not just, I'm nice and I'm smart, but you can talk about some things. It's a nice, simple industry to surface over the top of and find out what's going on, but then allows you to deep dive into it.
Thank you very much. So unless our panelists have any more comments on that, I'll move on to the next one. Bo from UCL asks, I use social media a lot, but I'm not a techie. I'm interested in digital advertising. Do I have to be technical to get into digital advertising? And that's open to the panel.
Well, no. You don't have to be technical. I mean, digital advertising has a very strong sense of creativity, a very strong sense of planning and strategy. There's obviously great client service. You can be a techie person, and I would say it obviously helps to understand as much as you can about it, but in the same way as it helps to understand all aspects of what it is you're doing. More than anything, I would say, rather than being techie, you need to have a passion for what digital and technology allow you to do. Having that will be far more interesting unless you're specifically going for a developer job, in which case, yes, you probably do need to be techie.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Harvey from UCL asks, I am a distance learning student. Are there many advertising jobs that are not in London? And I think I might ask, if I understand correctly, I'll ask Teresa to take this one, because you're not based in London, are you, Teresa?
No, that's right. From London, but not living there anymore. I mean, I would say the vast majority of the interesting, strong digital advertising jobs are based in London. There's just a huge amount there. But there are other hubs around the country. So, for example, Edinburgh is a good one, Manchester and Bristol as well. So there are some small creative hubs in the rest of the country. But for example, if you were to look at a job website and you did a search, you'd see that I guess probably 80%, 70% would probably be in London, to be honest. So it's if you're starting out, a good place to be. But obviously, it's certainly not impossible in other parts of the country.
Okay, thank you very much. Ibrahim from King's has asked, which areas of the sector have the most, excuse me, the most jobs for graduates currently? Open to the panel, if anyone has any ideas on that.
I would say at the moment and this is just, I guess, from each of us will have a microcosm answer to that. The current worldwide economy is such that people are constantly looking for good client service people who can create relationships and build relationships. So if you have a skill set in and around the people side of it, then that is an area that, and also it's an area which you can potentially prove that you'd be able to add much more immediate value. If you can say, I would be able to grow your clients' opportunities by great relationships and increase the amount of revenue, that's one way. Many agencies are also always looking for good planning people. But really across the spectrum, agencies are always looking for talented people. If they find someone who they think that they can use their talent and help grow their talent and that they'll add something to the business, agencies, more than most other industries, find jobs for the right people. Be that from the graduate side right the way up to senior managers and directors.
Great, thank you very much. We had mention of the benefits and the limitations also of doing, for example, a marketing degree. We've had a question from Michael at Royal Holloway who asks, are there any particular qualifications that impress advertising employers? So I think I'm guessing that means degrees and masters, but also possibly other qualifications like those offered by the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So are there any qualifications that impress advertising employers? That's open to the panel.
I think it's a good question. I don't think any off the top of my head leap out as standard qualifications that receive a lot of praise and accolade. That's probably because there are so many out there that have a little niche about them, that what's impressive is the ability to pick something that clearly sort of is developing a skill set you already have. So if that's something in, let's say, digital marketing, and you go to one of the industry bodies, maybe part-time digital marketing courses, then there's a clear sort of reason that it's developing your skill set. So there are many, many out there, but there's no one-size-fits-all. Not that I've heard of, anyway.
I think it can also really depend on the agency. It depends on the culture of the agency that you're trying to work at. Some agencies will prefer more formal qualifications. For other agencies, that may be less important, and it may be more about your personality, how you'll fit in. So every place will have different requirements, which can be a little bit confusing. But
great, thank you. So the next question's from Devika at St Mary's, and the question is, and it's we'll go through each of the panelists, please, and it's what would you say are the best and worst aspects of working in advertising? So we'll go backwards through the speakers. So maybe Teresa, if you could tell us, what do you think are the best and worst aspects of working in advertising?
I think I suppose the best one is when, I guess a lot of people get into the industry because of producing beautiful creative work. A lot of us, that's why we do it. So I guess when you've worked with a team to develop something which you're really exactly happy with, which the client loves, and which obviously works with your target audiences, that's a really nice feeling. And that, obviously these projects can take, especially in digital, can take a long time to build and launch. So if you put a lot of kind of spade work in something really big and quite intensive, once that goes live and it works, that's a really good feeling, and that needs to be celebrated. So I think that's the best part of it. Actually, another really positive thing is also just it can be quite tough. I head of a client services team, and my job involves juggling things and getting things out the door, and I think I get a sense of achievement out of that. So if I've had a busy day where I've touched 20 different things, that's kind of, that's good for me too. I guess in terms of the bad things, I'm trying to think of something really, really bad, and there definitely must be something. I suppose it's when you're, again, I guess from, client services, which is where I sit, you're quite often in the middle of things, so you might be dealing with a really difficult client who's hard to please. On the other end of that, you might have a creative team who aren't quite getting the brief right, or might be a little bit difficult to coerce into the project, or might have certain opinions which the client wouldn't appreciate. So it's kind of, that can be quite difficult, because obviously part of the role, I think Frank touched on this too, is the balance of opinions and thoughts and skills and experience to get something out the door. So I think getting caught up in those conversations can be quite tricky, but that's really the only thing I find negative about the industry.
Thank you, Teresa. Pete Dyson, do you? What's your best and worst things about working in advertising?
The best and worst. I think the best is the feeling when everything's really humming along. So in my role, I need to run around the whole building, speaking to different designers or project managers or creative teams in order to get the work produced, brief it in, and explain what it is the problem we're trying to solve. And it's a great feeling when all the little bits kind of tessellate together, and at the end of the day I can see just how much progress we've made. I was thinking about the worst. It's probably the fact that we're a creative agency, so we kind of live and breathe on the ideas that we can produce and get sort of the client to buy into, so to convince and persuade them that this is the best approach for their communications. So when that doesn't go so well, and we think we've got the right solution, and we may or may not be right or wrong, but we're confident we've come up with something great, but it's not going so well, and it's not going to plan. That can be a little bit disheartening, to say the least.
Okay, thank you, Pete. And moving on to Frank, please. What would you say are the best and worst aspects of working in advertising?
I would say that, to be honest, for me, the best and worst things are the same. No 2 days are ever the same. So one day I will be sitting in my office doing some work. The next day I will be in another country meeting a client. One day I'll go, one of our clients was Nestle Purina. I had to go to the plant where they manufactured the food, and I would get to see how it was actually done. You go through such a variety. You learn so many new things because you work with different clients. You know, I've never owned a pet. I've never had a pet, but I know so much about pet care. I've never had certain illnesses, but I understand so much about them because of pharmaceutical work I've done. You learn so much, but that variety is also, for some people, destabilizing. You don't know what you might be doing over the course of that week, because we are a service industry. So as client demands come in, client needs, you need to answer them. So no 2 days are the same. There is no right answer. There's not a sort of a mathematical formula, as the other guys have touched on. You can go to a client with what you think is the perfect answer for their problem, and they will say no. Or you have a bunch of answers, none of which you definitely like, and they'll love them. And you think, oh, I wish you didn't like this, because I want to go and do another one. And you get to work with such a variety of people. All of these are, for me, both the best and the worst, because you get to work with people who you wouldn't necessarily always socialize with, because it's such a variety of people. So you get to experience such a different mindset and view of the world, but you also sometimes have to work closely with people who you maybe wouldn't necessarily choose to spend your time with. So all in, I would say no days are the same, there's no right answer, and it's all about the variety of people. That, for me, is the best and the worst of what we do.
Interesting answer, Frank. Thank you. And then next we have Lucie. What would you say are your best and worst aspects of working in advertising?
I think my best will probably echo Frank's a little bit. I love my job because I find it absolutely fascinating. I learn new things absolutely every day. I get to hear about so many great new ideas. I get to have the time to sit and think about them. I get to research into things. You get to be interested in things you never thought you would be interested in. And the fact that you are getting interested in them is actually really exciting, and it's really nice to have that. I think that the worst point is, I think for me, the time pressure. This is an industry that moves very, very fast. Everything needs to be done yesterday, and sometimes I think you'd like to spend longer on something and like to have a bit more of a mull over and a think about it. But things need to get out, things need to get done, and sometimes that can be a little bit, I suppose, the slight downside to the industry from my point of view.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Okay, we now have a question from Greg, and it's directed actually directly to Teresa. He asks, he notices that your job title is in-house agency. He says, what is an in-house agency, and is it possible to work for only one company rather than as an agency?
Sure. Okay. So an in-house agency is basically when you have a really large organisation. Zurich, I work for Zurich, and there's 60,000 of us all across the globe. Quite often you'll find an in-house agency. So essentially, I guess you're kind of part of the same team as the rest of the organisation. So your colleagues are your clients, which is a little bit different to an external agency where there's definitely two businesses kind of meeting. So an in-house agency, you might find the services potentially a bit more sort of a bit cheaper. You should also expect in-house agency that the people in the team, so same structure as an external agency with, you know, creative planners, technology and creatives, you should find that those people have a bit more knowledge of the business because they are part of that same business as you are, and you know, related to that, obviously you'll kind of succeed together, so the work you're creating is for the same company. So I guess, you know, that's really what they're about. I suppose that there's one thing you need to kind of watch, because I think an in-house agency can potentially get a bit too sort of cozy. You know, obviously it's good if you're an external player because you're kind of, you know, you're sharper, you're kind of pitching your services more, whereas an in-house agency work just kind of comes in the door all the time, really. So you have to be careful you don't take that for granted, and that you actually can compete with an external agency as well. So that's how they work. So it's a little bit different to external, which can be, you know, perhaps more edgy, I would say, in general. And that tends to be where you find the biggest creative talents. I think that's, you know, I think that's quite a fair comment. So yeah, those are the differences, really.
Thank you very much. Okay, Savin at St Mary's says, I want to get a good result in my degree, so I'm planning to study over my holidays rather than work. My friends say that I need to get an internship if I want to get a job in advertising. Is this right? Open to the panel.
I would say it depends on how you want to position yourself. I myself didn't do an internship. I decided that for me it was about trying to get the best degree I personally could. I took that approach. I wish I could say I worked solidly every day all of my holiday, but I didn't quite do that. But I did work very hard. I ended up getting a first-class honours degree from Queen Mary's. It was a good degree for computer science. It therefore became the talking point for me. Obviously, many people get a first, but not as many get a first as get 2-1 or 2-2. So if you are comfortable that you're going to not have the talkability aspects of, you know, this is something I did this internship, I got this experience, but rather I worked very hard and my efforts were rewarded in a great result, which then allows you in and of itself to stand out. Again, it really is up to what you would like to do. The ideal answer is probably do both. Try and get an internship and work really hard and get a great grade. But I think it comes down to your personal choice. You don't have to have done an internship. I mean, one thing to say, I've interviewed many people over the years. I wouldn't look at someone and say, right, well, all you ever did was go to university and study and get a good result, but you didn't do an internship, therefore I'm not interested in you. But it does give you something. Yeah, all of these things give you something to talk about in the interview. All you're really trying to do is stand out and show that you can bring something unique to the business.
Great, thank you very much for that. We have another question from Romain, and he's asking, what is the work-life balance like in the industry and in your organisation in particular? I'd like to ask that to each member of the panel. So starting with Lucie, if I may, what's the work-life balance like where you work at Ogilvy?
I think it can really vary depending on different projects that come in. At the moment, I work in the PR agency within the group, and it can really fluctuate. That sometimes for strategy and research, you will be much busier before it gets passed on to creative via account management, and at other times you'll be maybe a little bit quieter and you'll get on with other projects. So I think it really can depend. Sometimes it can be crazy busy, you're staying late and coming in early, but at other times it really varies.
Okay, thank you, Lucie. Frank, what's the work-life balance like for you?
I think work-life balance is a question of what you, well, it's what you want to get from it. There are many people in the industry who, you know, make decisions based on life choices or whatever that they're going to do, kind of the 9 to 5:30, 9 to 6. It's not unheard of for that to happen. There are some people that are there at 6 o'clock in the morning and leave at 11, 12 o'clock at night and work all weekend. The agencies do tend to have a higher demand. I think the way to look at it is set yourself the expectation of what you are prepared and comfortable to do. For me personally, I love the job that I do. My choices are that I work as hard as I need to get done what I need to get done. And that means for me that my work-life balance is probably, I spend a lot of time at work, but I do it because I enjoy it. It is definitely an industry that can become all-consuming if you choose for it to be, or it is an industry that can accommodate a more regular hours role if that's what you're looking for.
Thank you. And moving on to Pete, how is work-life balance for you, Pete?
I'd echo what Frank's sentiments there. I think it certainly depends on on your own decision of how you work. Now that would apply whether you come to the advertising industry or whether you go down a completely different professional route. I suppose I can measure how much life I have outside of work by what my friends get up to. So as an industry, it's probably not quite like teaching where someone might have to go home and mark essays and plan lessons when they get back from school. Most of the work that is essential goes on in the building. Likewise, it's not quite it's like the legal industry or financial sector where really late hours are demanded or massively expected. When someone stays later, there usually is a trade-off somewhere further down the line. Personally, I take the approach of, I think it's similar to Frank, working as hard as I kind of define and as much as I think I can do in a day. And outside of work, I do a lot of sports and compete in races and sort of thing on a weekday evening, which might give you a sense of I have a bit of time to get outside every now and then.
Thank you, Pete. And finally, on to Teresa. How is work-life balance, Teresa?
Yeah, it's okay. I think it's something as everyone said, you need to be wary of and try and find your own approach to it that works for you. So, for example, you might sort of, read stuff or think about a problem on the way to work to get you ready for the day, or you might wind down at the end of the day by, kind of writing a really good list of things you need to do the next day. So I guess, it is, it's a busy industry. It's quite non-stop. You don't really not really sitting there staring out the window. It's not one of those kind of jobs. And you need, commitment, energy, focus. But the pace is really good. And I sometimes find if I haven't got enough to do, which actually doesn't really ever happen, you kind of your sort of focus drops off a little bit. So actually, I quite like it. It is definitely one of the more intense industries to work in. But if it's one you want to be in, then you do that. You don't mind. So it's possible to get a balance, definitely.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Ingrid at Goldsmiths. She says, I would like to have a job that is reasonably secure. Can you outline which jobs in advertising are most secure? So I guess that means also types of company, types of roles. So does anyone have any suggestions about particularly secure roles in advertising?
I'm not sure if any of them are 100% secure, but like any job, I guess, really, I guess in a fast-moving industry like the creative industry, it's probably good to not take things for granted and, to perform is obviously expected. Maybe there's more, the others might have some different views on this, but I guess maybe there's more, you might be more security involved with a job in a larger agency, for example, but then, if a big account is lost, that can obviously take a lot of revenue, which means, that might threaten some of the jobs that are currently, going there. So I wouldn't say it was one of the securest industries, but then again, I'm sure, I've never lost a job. I've worked for sort of 15 years now, so I guess it's just about your individual performance really that kind of keeps you in that job.
I think that's absolutely right. I couldn't have put it any better. Your job is as secure as you choose to make it, but almost I don't think you think necessarily of your job as always it's around the place you work, but it's your own. The way to explain, someone I knew worked at an agency which looked after a big automotive client. The automotive client decided to move on. They wanted to do a different agency, a new approach. And the different agency and the client actually said, but we really would like this guy to be a part of it. So he actually moved from one agency to another because the client wanted him on that account. The reason they wanted him is because they valued him, because he added value, he was a real benefit to them, they trusted him. I do think that in this current time that we live in, job security, although obviously very desirable, I don't know any industry that's secure. Even old-fashioned, what would have been seen as highly secure government jobs are currently becoming less secure. The good old pensions and all that stuff is fading away. I do think that bigger agencies generally may be slightly more secure than smaller ones, where there's potential you lose one client and the whole agency goes. But I don't think very many people enter this industry or any particular job with a big requirement being, I want a job I'm going to be at for 20 years. It's, I want a job I'm going to enjoy that will add value to me and my portfolio, and that hopefully will have a long longevity, but if needs be, I will move on, but I will take a lot of great experience and learnings with me.
Great, thank you very much. And I think this is probably going to have to be our final question, but we'll see. I'd like to direct it particularly to Lucie and Pete. The question is from Mark at UCL, and he asks, are graduate jobs well paid, and do they lead into jobs with good prospects? So I think the implicit point there is, are there good prospects? If you secure that role in the graduate advertising role, are you likely to be able to move on? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I suppose how well paid it is depends on your sense of perspective. But graduate roles as a way of entering the industry are probably marginally better paid than you would be if you joined flat out. I think the average starting salary for advertising, for better or worse, hovers around the £20,000 a year mark, which is lower than the graduate starting salary nationally of something like 27,000. But that being said, the number in advertising does increase quite rapidly as you move through, gain experience, and can clearly add value to all different types of parts of the business.
I'd say in terms of having a job once finishing the graduate scheme, I'm on a 2-year graduate scheme, Pete's on a 3-year graduate scheme. Over that time, the agency that you're in will have invested money in you in terms of training. They will have invested time in you in terms of moving you around and giving you lots of different experiences. So after that, they are generally quite keen to keep you on. They have invested money in you. It's worth then using the training that they've given you rather than letting you go off somewhere else and just having sort of trained you then lost you. I think they tend to be quite keen to keep hold of you from what certainly I've seen.
Great, thank you very much. And I think actually we do happily have time for one more question. So this one's from Lena, and she asks, what kind of, well, we asked about qualifications, but what kind of portfolios or materials does a creative need to get into advertising? So particularly focusing on creatives, what do they need to gather evidence of during their time at university? So would any of the panel like to answer this?
what I guess I would look for from a creative is one, to have absorbed what is going on around them. Creatives often are about looking and sort of learning and listening as well as creating. It all has to be relevant and reflective of the world around us, but style as well. What kind of style are you able to add that makes it uniquely your own? Again, you can either go the highly specialist route. You can say, I am deciding, even at this stage, that I'm going to specialize in designing packaging or what have you, in which case be really, really great at that and have a great variety of work within that specialism. Or take a broader view and show examples of how your creativity can span across different kinds of channels and routes. I mean, one of the things that marketing is doing now is becoming much more broad. You know, you have your web, you have your mobile, you have social, you have packaging, you have outdoor. Can you show how your creativity and your thinking could stretch one idea across many different touch points and make it all sort of work together and talk sensibly about why you did it? That's the kind of thing. It's not anymore just about it looks really pretty. It's having that thought and consideration around it and how people will experience it. If you can inject that into your portfolio, then again it makes you more unique, it makes the work more talkable, and it makes you stand out from people that will just show up with something highly wacky or highly pretty but not necessarily considered.
Frank, thank you very much for that answer. And actually, with that answer, we're drawing to a close. I'd like to thank very much, firstly, our panelists. We talked about work-life balance, where we've just added an extra hour to their day. So thank you very much to all our panelists who've taken the time out of their days to come and share their experience and their knowledge with us. Also, thank you to everyone who attended. The webinar will be available online. You will receive the link within the next 24 hours. We'll also include in that email with the link, we'll include a link to our feedback form. It's very important that you help us out and let us know what we've done well and not so well so that we can improve our service to you. But again, I'd like to thank the panelists very much for their time, and we hope to see everyone again soon on another webinar. Thank you.